Hello, hello, hello.
Hi.
I'm so excited to be here. I have to hit a button real quick on this thing. And then, where are we at here? So, welcome to the KOPE Life Podcast.
Thanks.
I
Excited
am
to be here.
I'm so excited. So, for anyone who's tuning in who has not watched this podcast before, I'm Charleston Gaines, the host of this KOPE Life Podcast and emotional intelligence life coach. And Cope Life is all about living a life daily based on kindness, optimism, positivity, and empathy. And so, what I like to do in this podcast is really introduce you to people who have an inspiring story to tell, who can really help us understand, how to find strength and how to overcome obstacles daily. And Heather, man, that's what you do. I'm so inspired by you. I was inspired by you so much like even over a year ago. And since then, you've just continued to do great things. You seem to be comfortable with me saying great things about you, but I don't know. You might have to get used to it. So without further ado, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about you?
Okay. So obviously, I'm Heather, Heather Gatti. I am active duty military. I'm a tech sergeant. I am a mother to two amazing children, most times. Um, Married, and I'm a daughter, granddaughter, cousin. All the boxes, probably it. I think one of my most prized roles that I play, other than being a mother, is I'm a CASA worker, so I testify on behalf of abused and neglected children for our county. That definitely fills my cup. Um, but yeah, that's who I am.
I so I'm an emotional guy, and I was actually looking at doing CASA. This was a long time ago, right? I mean, I was a staff
Mhm.
sergeant. I was in New Mexico, and I was looking at doing CASA, and I was like, I don't think I can handle it because when we talk about doing things for children, for supporting them, what we often don't talk about is just how strong you have to be to do it. So I totally appreciate you doing that. Um, there's just one more thing for me to admire about you.
Thank
How,
you.
however, I will say that when I have guests on here, I asked, what's your story? Like, what is it that you've experienced that is going to move us? And you have a lot of stories. So I'm excited, anticipating what you have to share. So the floor is yours. Answer the question your way and take as long as you want. Just be
Okay.
yourself and let us get to know you.
Okay. I think I I could have a very long story. I've had a few moments though, in my life, like two, I would say three, like really life altering moments where it was me sitting with myself and it's like, okay, so this happened. Now what are we gonna do? And I had choices to make. With life, and I would say career, like career defining moments where it's like, now I'm at this fork in the road and there's no right or wrong way, but I have to choose a way. I think that for me, if I was going to tell a story, well, I could discuss my childhood or the first half of my military career and dealing with sexual assault and that time. I think the most growth I've seen in myself and what I'm most proud of now is the things that have happened in the last 12 to 15 months. Really, I would say the last 12. And I'm going to tell my story. And it's a great reminder to myself for how far I've come. It's humbling to know where I am, but it's a great reminder that one choice or one decision or one moment could still take me back. So I'm a huge mental health advocate. And the one thing that I would say is that with my story, I have to remind myself that mental health isn't just a box to check. Like athletes don't go work out once a week and then they're like this Olympic all star. Same with our health. Like you can't diet for a day and be healthy. So every day sometimes can be a struggle, and then there's days where it's like I'm on it and I'm killing it. 3 days ago I was an emotional wreck, so going to tell my story, but I don't want anyone to think that by any means do I have it under control or I am numb to things. I'm not. I still feel things a lot. But yeah, that's my first little spiel, my little prerequisite to the story. I would say a year ago, I found myself unhappy with a lot of things. My job was tough. I was having marital issues, and it wasn't light marital issues. There's some heavy things going on. I was struggling with depression and anxiety. I have PTSD, and it felt like every nasty demon was like rearing its nasty head, and I was having to take it on. I did not cope with a lot of things. I didn't want to see a therapist. I didn't want medication. It was kind of one of those things like I've been fine with all these things up to this point. I don't need help. So I was working out at extreme times of the day, pouring myself into every role possible. I was trying to be an all-star mom and an excellent coworker, and I was giving everyone everything so that I did not have to deal with the things that mentally I didn't want to. And it wasn't I just didn't want to, I was neglecting myself. I'll rewind just a tad. I had the exact same experience when I first had my son, who just turned 4. It's not that I didn't believe in postpartum depression. I had never dealt with it, so I did not realize the things that came along with it. That's really the first time that I had a bout with depression. And I once again found myself laying in bed, exhausted, and it's kind of like I can let this all go and tomorrow's going to be a new day, but I knew my problems were waiting for me the next day, and I was like, where does this end? I'm exhausted. I was practical enough to know that I did not want to commit suicide. I know that no one in this world is going to love my children the way that I am, and they need me. But it did not keep me from not thinking about it. Because when you're in that moment, you're like, there's no end in sight. Sure, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but I don't see it. And I went as far as, if I commit suicide, Justin works tomorrow, so it would be my 6-year-old who found me. And I can't do that to her. She's innocent. And I try so hard to fight for the innocence in children. I couldn't do that to my daughter. So I woke up, I went through my normal routine, put my daughter on the school bus, took my son to daycare, and I sat in the parking lot at work. Around this time, my brother also had some mental health issues, and I don't want to go through that whole story, but there was a moment I was on the phone with him, and I hear the police in the background yelling at him to drop the gun, and I thought I was going to hear my brother die. So I'm sitting in the parking lot the day after. I'm contemplating what I'm supposed to do, and I hear this, and I knew. I was like, that's it. That moment was the point where it's like, I'm going to do something because I can't stay here. This is a very uncomfortable position. I don't want to be here. I can spiral or I can move, but I knew that I had to keep moving, right?
So
So
let me just ask some questions here.
okay.
So you can catch your breath. So first of
Yeah.
all, I just want to make a statement. You mentioned Justin, so I want to clarify.
Mm-hmm.
He's your husband.
Yes.
And then so as you were sitting there, right? So one day after the next, they all kind of suck, and then you have these days where you're talking about sitting in the parking lot, having to make a decision, listening to what's going on with your brother. What was your sense of self-worth at that time?
I can't tell you that I had any self-worth. Um, I'll refer to them as roles, right? Like I'm a mother, I'm a CASA worker, I'm a supervisor. I knew that I had a purpose in those roles, but Heather alone, to take all those roles away, strip them away from me, and I'm just Heather, I would have told you that while I didn't think that I deserved to die, I didn't see why I deserved to live either. Like I felt like I had nothing. Like I was going through the motions and going through the routines, but my purpose was so minimal. Like I had no self-worth. There
Okay.
was no level, just none.
Wow. Well, that's very powerful because so many people feel that so often. But what happens is they're in a situation where they don't make a decision like you did. They just stay there. And of course, and you stayed there for a little while, and I've been there
Oh
too where
yeah, I was comfortable there too.
yeah.
As uncomfortable as I was good there. I was great
Um,
at being miserable.
I'm grateful you said that because I've spoken to people about their comfort zone. And the thing about your comfort zone is that your comfort zone is not the same as your happy place because you can be comfortable in your misery. What I want to ask you about next is where you talked about not wanting to get out of bed. And that's a symptom of depression, right? Like you don't want to get out of bed, you're stuck there. You said you were exhausted. So if you could briefly explain what is the difference between that depressive exhaustion compared to the exhaustion you felt after like an incredibly intense workout.
Um, so I if anybody who knows me knows I was working out. I still work out now, but I do it because I enjoy it, not because it's an escape. So I would be exhausted after working out, but for that hour, 90 minutes, I was not focusing on anything. So while my body was exhausted, I felt good mentally. When I was waking up in the mornings, mentally, I had no drive. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to see. It was to the point where I would not even look at myself in the mirror when I was brushing my teeth. I, it's almost like I disgusted myself, but I didn't know why. Um, I, that kind of exhaustion from depression is, it is one of the heaviest feelings that I think that anybody could carry and deal with. It's like I didn't want to think. I didn't want to make decisions. I would ask my daughter, what do you want to eat? I don't want to figure it out. What do you want? Just tell me what you want and I'm going to do it because I don't want to figure it out. I don't want to do that. I would go to work, and this was also during COVID. So I'm working a full-time job with half the resources and full demands. And I felt like I was failing. Like I couldn't do anything right. I couldn't get ahead. I couldn't stay ahead. Everything was, while I was pouring everything I had into the task was only half fulfilled because I had nothing left to give. That kind of exhaustion. Like I genuinely just didn't care anymore. And that feeling of not caring eventually turned into anger for me. Um, and the only way and I wasn't dealing with the anger, but the only way that I could control the anger was the Uniform Code of Military Justice. The UCMJ was holding me to keep my shit together, basically. That's the only reason I think that I didn't snap at work or I wasn't falling completely off the deep end, even though I was absolutely walking the line. Um, yeah.
Well, I feel compelled to read this comment from Facebook user, and then we'll continue. It says, "We love you, Heather Windsor Gotti. Thank you for your courage and vulnerability. You are amazing." So,
I love that. I literally just had someone who works for me text me and thank me for being amazing and a leader. And even in the place that I'm in now, I'm like, I don't see myself as amazing. I feel I have a purpose now, but I'm so telling people those things seriously can really make their day and carry them through moments like I was absolutely having at that time. So thank you, Facebook user.
all right. So let's kind of get back on track here. You said
Okay.
that there were three moments or three defining moments or something to that nature. And this one you talked about, you were in your car and you decided it was time to make a change. And so It's your story. Take it from here wherever you want to go.
Okay. So I'm like, yep, this is it. I cannot continue living this way. So we have a doctor within the workspace, who always is like, call me if you need it. We have all these resources. And it's weird that we get told this all the time. And then in that moment, I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I called him. He's an 05 or 06, little me calling this big guy. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he was like, give me more. So I laid it all out on the line, the good, the bad, the worse. And he was like, you need to get seen. So I started therapy. I'll be honest with you, I was not enthused. I felt like it was almost like gossip hour, and nobody wants to talk about the things that are hard. Nobody wants to talk about it and relive it. I was honestly just looking for I wanted a quick fix. I wanted to walk into that office and then tell me, okay, this is step 1 through 3. This is how you're going to be great. That was not it. That's what I was expecting, and I got a rude awakening. There's no quick fix to this. So I started therapy. I went through a chain of therapists, and medication. And looking back now, I think that, like I said, like I wanted the quick fix, but I was really grasping at anything I thought was going to help me. And people say, like, you have to put your face mask on first. You have to pour into your own cup. So I'm grabbing for all these resources, and I'm putting as much into myself as I can. But really, I was doing it to say I was doing it, and I wasn't really giving it my all. I wasn't like dedicating myself to this. I wasn't actually working on my mental health. I was looking for someone to tell me how to change my thought process and fix it. It was really when a surgeon in June looked me in my face and said, "You're going to have surgery. We are going to remove 3 discs in your neck, up to 5, 3 to 5. You cannot lift over 5 pounds. You can't walk more than 4 to 5 minutes at a time." I literally was going to have to rely on someone to do every single task for me, to include care for my children. That's my job. So that upset me. I had to have the surgery. I had nerve damage. They didn't know how bad. I still suffer from it. It's in my arm and my hand. I still get migraines, but that, for me, that moment when I was laying in a hospital bed, told that I'm not going to be moving. This was after surgery, after I've come to. I have a drain coming out of my neck. I now have blood clots, so I'm going to be staying longer. That I realized, like, well, it looks like now I'm going to work on me. I'm like, the world put me on my ass and made me sit down and made me focus on myself, because I couldn't do anything for anyone from that position. I literally could not care for my children. I couldn't shower. I couldn't brush my own teeth. I couldn't lift my arms above my head. Couldn't brush. I could do nothing. So I was forced to fix myself, is what I think. It's what I did. And I'm grateful for that moment. That's the moment. So while the mental health aspect of it, I had that moment in the parking lot. It's like I knew I needed to fix it. I knew I had to do something, but I still wasn't. It was like God, like, okay, you really just didn't get the picture the first time. So it's like, here you go again. And on like a Wednesday, I think it was, they were like, hey, you're going to have surgery on Tuesday. And I'm like, whoa, what? I then went on convalescent leave from the surgery. I couldn't do anything for 12 weeks. I think at my 2-week appointment post-surgery, he was like, you can start lifting your arms above your head. You can dress yourself. When you're comfortable to feel like you can drive and you're not on medicine, you can drive. That wasn't until like the 6-week mark. But that time, so like people say COVID slowed them down, made them enjoy the small things. No, it took me getting disc in my neck and not being able to do anything for myself for me to mentally work on myself because I was stuck with myself. I couldn't go work out. I couldn't take care of my kids. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't make excuses basically for why
I,
I wasn't taking care of myself anymore.
I feel like it's so crazy to me because obviously you lived it, so clearly you're gonna have a different perspective than I do, right?
Yes.
Clearly, I'm from the outside looking in. And then I hear your story, and I just think like you focusing on you is the greatest thing you could have done for everyone
Yes.
else. And it's like
But
our
I did not
kids,
think that.
yeah. Well, of course not, right? And our kids can't tell you that. They don't tell us that, right? When your youngest, I guess when he was 3, he wasn't gonna say to you, "Hey, why don't you take a mental health break, mom?" Like,
Yeah, no.
that's not happening. And so and another thing I'm thinking, the way my brain works is like a couple of things. First of all, you hear stories about people that say, I hit rock bottom and I had to make a choice. But it's not instantaneous. It's not like, okay, I hit rock bottom and I bounced up 3 or 4 levels. Like, no, I hit rock bottom, walked around a little bit, and realized I could actually go down a little further.
Yes. That's what I felt like I did. I hit rock bottom and I made myself believe that I was fixing things, but I wasn't. I was not taking care of myself. Now, I know that when I, when I'm at my best, I can be the best mother. I can be the best leader. I can be the best whatever. But and what's weird is that I knew that then. Like that's what people don't talk about. Like when I thought about committing suicide, I knew that I didn't want to, but I just knew that I was waking up every day and fighting what felt like this endless battle, and I was looking for an easy way to end that battle. I didn't want to die. I I knew as a leader that my troops were the best that they could be when they had their time off or when they were appreciated or when I seen them and recognized them. I knew that, but I could not put it into play for myself. And I think I was trying to be so selfless and help everybody that I was really not seeing that I truly was neglecting myself.
So when you say that, I think a couple of things I think of. First of all, is you say that about your troops, right? Like, so they're at their best if they get time off, if they can take care of themselves, those kinds of things. But a lot of times, what we'll do is, as leaders, especially when you are really struggling, what's going on is you think their best is worth something, and you don't feel that way
Absolutely.
about yourself.
Yep.
And what I want you to do kind of is if you can maybe kind of answer this question in your own way, but you talked about trying to be as selfless as possible. So let's briefly talk about the difference between being selfless and feeling worthless because we try to disguise one as the other.
Yeah. And I think I absolutely was doing that. I felt worthless, so I was trying to give everything that I could give to show that I could be good. Um, that's a tough question.
Oh, that's
Um,
okay. That's okay.
and it is because I absolutely was tying the two together.
Yes.
I was using wanting to be selfless because I felt worthless. I didn't feel like I was worthy to be of anything, so if I just gave everything to everybody else, it was good for them. Investing in myself I did not see it as a good. I felt that it was selfish. Like,
Yes.
you don't need to take that. Continue to give to other people, and you're gonna fill into their cups, and you're gonna do all these great things, and eventually you'll be worthy of taking care of yourself. And that sounds crazy to me saying that, but that's absolutely what my actions were doing.
Right. Right. And that's the thing I guess I want people to understand. And that's why I'm grateful that you're here is when you talk about really what you're talking about is the journey, right? And sometimes we make up these journeys in our head. Like there's a journey of having some worth. Well, no, really, there's not. You were always valuable. You were always strong when you didn't feel like it. You always had something to give when you didn't feel like it. And so it's not a journey to worth. But we make up these things in our head. And really what's going on with you is since the journey isn't real, right? You're trying to get to somewhere that you're already at. You are already like you already matter. You already have value. You already have worth. So there's nowhere to go. But because you don't feel that, you feel like you're not going anywhere. And that's where these thoughts of suicide come about. And I love what you said about, and I'm so grateful you said it, where you said you thought about suicide, but you didn't actually want to die. And I think that's very important because a lot of people don't understand suicide. It's not that I want to die, it's that I want the pain to stop.
I
But it's
want to be able to live without feeling like it.
yes. And it's hard to see where there's a difference. How can I make the pain stop except for this one method, this one act? And so what happened was, like you said, you had surgery and you were put in a situation where you had time to think of another answer. So,
A lot of time. A lot of time.
yeah. And so can you talk about kind of really just in those 12 weeks you mentioned, in those 12 weeks, how did your mindset shift? Like what was actually happening mentally and emotionally?
So mentally, emotionally, and physically. First, it, Justin knows this. I said it straight to his face. I did not want to ask for help. I didn't want help from anyone, and he was absolutely the last person on this earth that I wanted to ask for help. And that was probably the biggest step for me was being like, hey, I can't get myself undressed to get in the shower. And once I get in the shower, I don't know how I'm going to get clean. I'm actually going to need help. Um, that was probably the biggest feat for me. Finally just saying, yep, I need help. Verbalizing that I needed help. Um, this was about a week after I'd come home from surgery. So I had time to think about all this all in the hospital bed, but I was kind of in and out because they were pushing medicine. And then I get home and I'm trying not to take the medicine because I'm really stubborn and I didn't want to get addicted to it and I was scared of that. So I'm like doing Tylenol and Motrin for this huge major surgery. So plenty of time to think and now I'm awake. Mentally, I'm watching everybody take care of my kids. I'm watching them clean my house. I'm watching them cook for everybody, waiting on me hand and foot, bringing me ice packs. And the first few days, I'm like, why? I don't deserve this. I don't, why? Why are these people helping me like this? Why are people reaching out to me and texting me and telling me they hope I get better? And it's like I finally had that moment. My friend, she had dropped off like this activity book thing because she knew I was gonna be sitting down like a coloring book or something. And I'm like, this is so thoughtful. And then it's like maybe these people really care about me. Just maybe. Um, I'm I'm worthy enough for these people to look out for me. Because this is like week 2 or 3. Like at this point, if they were faking it because I wasn't worthy, they wouldn't still be around, right? They would have already been like, "Here's your help, bye." Um, so mentally, I think the first step was me understanding I needed help and asking for it, and then realizing like I I am worth it to them. I'm worth it to them to help me, and they really want to see me get better. Um, Emotionally, I think I was all over the place. I know I was. I would get mad that I couldn't do anything for myself. I would get upset that people were having to help me. I would get upset that I couldn't do anything for myself, and I didn't know why. I knew why, but I didn't understand um, why I had to get put in that position. Why do you have to get hit by a car when you're running and mess up your neck? I don't know, but it happened to me. So here we are. I I know that period for me was when I had the light bulb and the aha moments. Like that's when I seen my worth. I seen that there was worth there. I was not in the place that I am now by any means. But I knew then that there was a purpose for me and there was going to be a it was going to be worth it for me to continue to get better. There was worth there. I just needed to expand upon it, basically. That's when I finally like got it through my own head that now's the time. You really can work on yourself. So there is a girl on my Facebook. I've never told her this, so if she's watching, this is going to be weird. We worked together in one of our last jobs, and she was always posting about taking care of herself and filling her cup and how important it was to her and to everybody else. And I'm watching these posts daily because I ain't got nothing else to do. And I'm reading it, and then I'm believing in myself that I have some worth, and then I'm seeing these posts every day, and I'm like, why don't I pour into myself that way? She seems like she has it all together, which I find out later she doesn't, but she's able to pour this into herself, and she's able to get through all these tough things, and she's able to still be strong with these things going on. I can too, right? So I started reading books, and I learned about emotional intelligence and like what that actually is and how it is a thing. And I had, thankfully, the resources on my phone, mainly Amazon and Kindle, but to read about this and learn. And for that aspect of it, those were things that I really didn't know. Learning about taking care of myself and learning about the thought processes and the importance of understanding why I'm feeling certain ways, that was huge for me. So the research part of being forced to sit down and learning how to get myself out of the things that got me to where I
I
was
love
pretty
that. I
crazy.
love it so much because there's a couple different layers. There's the part of feeling that you have some worth, and then there's the education part. Because
Yes,
people can learn about emotional intelligence, they can read the vocabulary, words, and definitions and stuff, and still feel worthless. And then on the flip side, you can love yourself as much as possible, but not understand your emotions. And for you, it was growth both mentally and emotionally while repairing yourself physically, right?
yeah,
It wasn't physical growth like working out. It was, I just have to lay here and let my body do what it does. And
yes.
so what I want to ask you now is just about the process where you said that you're sitting in your car and you listened to what happened, you made a decision, so you started going to therapy. And then, you brought up being hit by a car, you had the surgery now 12 weeks later. From the time that you were sitting in the car to the end of that 12 weeks, about how much time passed?
Okay, I don't math, but like 5.5 months.
Okay.
5 to 6 months.
Wow, that's I think that's so important because we don't give ourselves enough grace and have enough patience with ourselves as we recover, as we heal, as we figure out that we have value, right? Because we say things like read these affirmations, but it's not like, oh, I have a daily affirmation, I am worthy. It's let me read that shit every day, and maybe at some point I'll start to believe it. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, and so for you, it's like a 6 month process. And at the end of the 12 weeks, it wasn't like, hey, life's
I want the
perfect.
fix. Yeah,
Yeah,
right. No,
yeah. Time's up.
no, no, not at all. So the 12 weeks end, I go back to work, and now it's like the test, right? Like I know these things and I'm still trying to build on them, but now I have to go back to real life. I'm going to face struggles. I'm going to deal with things like I'm off my comfortable couch. Don't get me wrong, I was ready to get off the couch, but then the bad days happen, the long work days, the troublesome coworkers, like that stuff still happens. So I learned how to still grow while dealing with these things. And like I said, like at the beginning, I still have bad days. I still have days where I'm like, what the hell was that at night? Like what happened today? But I know that even if tomorrow's a bad day too, like the bad days are gonna run out, and it's only bad if I let it be. I'm only gonna continue to spiral down if that's where I want to go, and it's not. So I learned the importance of giving myself grace, um, giving myself the lead way to understand that like I don't have to get it right every single time. I can have a bad day and have a bad thought and get upset about something And if I want to change it 5 minutes later and act like that didn't happen and move on, I really can. I don't have to dwell on it. I can give myself grace and understand, like, feel these feelings in the moment, but then they stay there. And I'm gonna now what? Now where are we gonna go? Now what are we gonna do? I'm not taking that with me because it's gonna get way too effing heavy. I learned that, especially big when I went back to work.
I love it so much. I love it so much. I did a video yesterday talking about people who bring guilt and shame with them, and you're trying to grow, like trying to run faster. The faster you run, the heavier the shame gets. You have to take it off. Um,
Yeah.
and what I love about what you're saying is, in each of these micro moments, you had to make a decision, and a lot of times there's actually two decisions to make, and we try to roll it into one. There's something you have to stop doing, and something you have to start doing. I can't start going to therapy, and I have to stop doing these other things. Like, for example, you can't go to, this may be an extreme example, but you can't start the process of healing from alcoholism while still having beers with your friends. You have to stop something before you start something else. And so for you, what I want to do is I want to ask a question. I'm just in the mood for some of your positivity here. So I'm gonna try to be direct and hit you with the positive.
Okay.
Throughout this process, the 12 weeks at home, what was it like interacting with your kids on the good days?
The good days. They
How,
they really were good days. I had a lot of good days. If you took the pain part out of it, it was good. My neck really did hurt. Those days really were so fulfilling. My daughter wanted every day to, like, draw me a picture or tell me a story or read me a book. And some days I'd be like, my head hurts. I can't listen. Just sit next to me. But she would be so content and happy that I let her sit next to me. Because, I would try to keep them at a distance. Like, please don't mess up my neck. I don't want to do that again. But it's almost like I can't even put it into words because it was so fulfilling. Like, it's such a sigh of relief that the very kids that made me crazy were keeping me so happy and holding on. Even in that moment when they really couldn't do anything but sit next to me. My son, he was in daycare and he would come home with, like, drawings or stuff that he did, and he has like, speech delay, so I would catch every, like, 3 out of 15 words, but he would just be so excited to talk to me and see me, and, like, seeing his excitement to see me would just put me in such a good mood, and I feel like I was more present in those moments than I was in a very long, like, I was seeing those moments for what they were, and they were beautiful, and I loved it, and I loved seeing him get so excited to see me, and my daughter being so happy just to sit next to me or to brush my hair. It it's like, here it is. This is more of the reassurance that, like, I'm worthy. Look, my the most precious children in this world to me, look how much I mean to them. Like, I am their world.
that is,
That I don't feel worthy of that.
I love it. I'm telling you, your story, everything that you're saying is so inspiring to me. Regardless of what anyone else thinks, this podcast episode is for me. So, but I asked you that, and I love to hear it because when we first began, you talked about how they were the reason that you had to keep going. And so sometimes what we don't realize is that this love that we receive and this love that we give, it's not quantifiable and it's not going to change. And they wanted so bad for you to focus on getting better. Like, and so let me tell you just a quick story about that is where research has shown that when 4-year-olds are diagnosed with cancer, they're more likely to tell their parents it'll be okay than vice versa.
Of course
Yeah.
they are.
And so that's the love, that's the love that they have for us. And when you're having the hard times, when you feel like you're not worthy, when you feel like you lack value, it's really easy to feel like you don't deserve what your kids have to offer you. And what I love is that they didn't ask you.
No. No. They didn't ask me. They didn't ask me what I thought of myself. They loved
Yeah,
me anyways.
I love it. I love it. So we've talked a lot about your journey, but if you could just kind of, I don't know, just maybe take it a little bit further or deeper about just getting from that point to where you are now. I mean, you and I had a conversation, I want to say a couple weeks ago, lose track of time, where you just said flat out that you are happy.
That's so crazy.
And there are people who maybe they've experienced things similar to what you've been through and they've recovered, but they cannot say, I am happy. So how did you get from there to saying, okay, maybe I'm worth it. Okay, this feels good. I like it. You went from there to saying, I am happy. Can you tell us about that?
I just want to say it's weird for those words to come out of my mouth. Like, I am happy. I I won't like sugarcoat it. Like, the things around me are still the exact same things that were around me when I didn't feel worthy, when I wasn't happy. I I won't say that I've worked to realize the worth of the things around me that make me happy, but it's like I see it differently now. That's the same house that I used to hate cleaning because it was so much and I felt overwhelmed, and I'm OCD, so I was cleaning baseboards and with toothbrushes, is isn't the burden that it was then. And you can equate that to like almost everything. Like, the job that stressed me out and I hated, and I would get like 3 minutes to go from tech sergeant to mother, and I felt like I can't ever just catch a break. Like, it's the same job that I go to with a level head, and I'm enjoying pouring into the people that work for me. So it really was changing my thought process. Like, instead of looking at it this way, how about looking at it this opposite way? And it didn't happen overnight. Didn't And some things I'm still like, that's still a pain in my ass. Still don't like that. Laundry, still don't like it. I'm not grateful for the clothes. I hate that they're dirty. So it changing my thought process and trying to look at things differently, like genuinely feeling blessed for the very things that made me stressed out before, is huge. Justin was really pivotal in that also, and I probably don't give him enough credit. There's been plenty of conversations where he's looked at me and been like, I hear you, but what can you actually control about this? You can control your mindset. You can control your actions. You can't control the people and the things around you. So stop letting those affect you. And that sounds great. Sure. Sure. But it took really understanding and putting that into play. So, like, I would beat myself up when I would have an airman fail a PT test, or I have to write a piece of paperwork for. I was looking internally, like, what did I do wrong that you couldn't succeed? Um, but I can't control their actions. The only things I can control is me, making sure I'm doing what I can for those people. So the same everywhere else. A bad day, what could I control about any of those situations? Yes, I can learn from it, the things that I couldn't and the things that I could, but changing my thought process was huge. I can almost, as quickly as I start having a negative thought now or getting upset about something, I'm like, Heather, no, no, is this really you, or is this something external that you can't control? And there is a lot more things that I can't control that I used to let define me that it does not anymore. And I'm not going to say I don't care. I care, but I care only enough to where it doesn't define who I am as Heather
I love it.
anymore.
I love it so much. Like, so you're talking about really just, focusing on what you can control. And then you
Yes.
say, but you still feel a certain way. And I love that because in the beginning, when we started this conversation, one of the things that you said was that you still felt the things.
I still feel
Yeah.
it.
And so you were able to really just still acknowledge and embrace your emotions. And I think that's very important because I mean, it's just important, right? Because if you don't acknowledge what you're feeling, you can't do anything about it, right? So you have to acknowledge its existence, acknowledge its impact on your life, and then choose to do something else. Choose to take a positive perspective, choose to let something go, choose to recognize that this actually is not important anyway. So I'm going to let it go. And what you said was that it's kind of automatic now because, and the thing about it is thoughts and emotions, they're really physiological. So you can feel it in your body when the negativity is coming, and you almost automatically start turning it positive. And I love that because when I talk to people about that same thing, resilience training calls it reframing. Another thing about emotional regulation calls it cognitive reappraisal, right? And it takes practice. It took a long time for that to be automatic for you.
And there are Sundays, I mentioned 3 days ago, my emotional breakdown, right? I don't even know what triggered it. And I'm like, I'm being negative. I'm on a spiral. I'm crying. I literally texted Justin and I'm like, no offense to you. This has nothing to do with you. It's definitely me. I'm gonna have my moment. I'm gonna be upset. I'll come out of it. Just get today. I just need a minute. I think work was stressful. Um, I had mentioned to you in a prior conversation, like with my grandparents, they're always the soft spot, right? So I was like, just give me a minute, let me be upset. I need to feel this because if I don't, I'm gonna be like, nope, wall up, not deal with it, and then I'm just gonna be right back to the same old habits that got me sitting what felt like in the depths of hell last year.
Yes, yes,
No, it
and
doesn't happen that fast, but I know now. I know neglecting those things was the exact first steps that I took a long time ago that got me in that really bad place.
and that's the thing is you recognizing it, right? That's that self-awareness piece. Sometimes you're driving and you don't remember the way, but you're like, oh, that road looks familiar.
Hmm.
Well, you said this road looks familiar, and I know I'm not supposed to go down that road. So you're able to acknowledge and really feel your feelings. And the thing about it is, all of our feelings are valid. They have a purpose. Our emotions have a purpose. If happiness was the only emotion you ever felt, it would have no value because you would just stay there. And so what you did, which I try to, um, I try to impart this in other people, right? I try to teach people this. Let the emotion do what it's supposed to do. Let it have the effect. Let it come in, do its thing, and let it leave. But when you suppress it, you're pushing it down somewhere inside you so that it's still there. And
I was
you've
really
just
good at that. I was really good at ignoring things.
and now you're on a whole new level. Like there's this shine, there's this glow with you. And I know that people around you, people who see you more often, feel it all of the time. And so I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you.
Man, I kind of wish we could do this for another 2 or 3 hours. Because there's so much, and I can tell you that people who don't know more details about your story, I can say to them that whatever you may be experiencing, yeah, Heather probably went through that too. And
It's been ugly.
yeah,
There was years of negligence in almost every situation, from sexual assault to abuse. I don't think that I ever went through alcoholism, but I definitely was making excuses for drinking at some point. The suicidal things, like I'm not immune to any of it. Even now, I know I'm still vulnerable to those things, but I'm doing all the things that I can control to keep myself from getting back there.
I love it. I love it so much. And so when you say that, I think about the people who they don't have that perspective, right? They know what it's like to make the excuses to drink. They know what it's like to make those excuses and think about the suicide, think about what happened when they were younger. Um, but they don't know how to get from there to happy. And so what would you say to those people that are they're trying to find, it's not even about being happy tomorrow. It's like, which way do I even go to find the path? What do you say to those people?
Um, I think the first step would be it's not none of it's easy. It's not going to be easy healing. It's also not going to be easy to continue to spiral. You choose what work you want to go through. You choose the pain that you want. I chose the pain of figuring myself out and growing. Um, I don't know an interesting person that has an easy story. So you choose your pain. It's the same with marriage. Marriage is hard. Divorce is hard. You choose your hard. Um, you get when you find yourself not knowing what you're supposed to do, you choose. Then you don't know what you're supposed to do. You don't. There's no easy option. So at that point, you almost have the luxury of choosing your next step, right? Like you choose. Are you going to go backwards? Or are you going to go forward? Choosing that step and then sticking with it, even on the days it's so much easier to just go the other way. Believing that even if every role or aspect there's not worthiness to you, find the worth that you think you're worth and hold on to it. I'm so grateful for my children, for my 7-year-old and her big brown eyes, and Cash being the terrorist that he is. Like I'm so thankful that I at least knew that while I did not feel like I deserved their love, I had it.
Yeah. I wonder what I wonder what Cash would say if someone told him, if someone said something to him, anything remote like mom doesn't deserve this love.
Cat, I wonder, like, how do my kids see me? Like, what do they think? Like, I get a glimpse of what I think they think of me, but Cash would be so distraught by, like, excuse you? He told his daycare teacher that his shirt said "Mama is my queen," and he told her that yesterday. Like, "Mom's my queen," and I'm just like, no. If you saw me the way I saw me at one point, I would be the peasant. Like that. It sounds extreme, but that's true. Yeah, and I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for being able to see my worth because I didn't have it in almost everywhere I looked.
Mm. It's so powerful, and you say that basically you're saying that if he saw you the way you saw yourself, you would have been a peasant. If that were the case, man, then the strength it took for you to go from being a peasant to being his queen is unspeakable.
Ah, yes. I think if there was like one thing I could tell people, like if I could have a slogan, what would it be? And it's I've been there, and the fullness, the happiness, the worth that I feel right now, it's so worth it. It's so worth the work and the tears and the emotion and the anger. And it's so worth it to me every day to keep filling into my cup because the feeling that I have now is you can't describe it. It's like I truly like you see these couples on Facebook or you see all these quotes or you see these girls who are like I'm just happy and I used to see them and be like roll my eyes. And yourself or everyone else that you're happy. Like what are you doing? But now I feel it and I'm like this is a thing. Happiness
Happiness
is
is a
is
thing.
real. Love it's real and it's so worth it. It's so worth it. I wish I could just give people like just an ounce of mine so they can see it and realize like it's so worth fighting for. It's so worth not giving up on yourself.
Yeah. And everyone who loves you, cares about you, feels the same about you. They they also want you to fight for yourself because the people that want to see you happy can't make you happy. So when you fight for your own
Right.
happiness, you're also fighting for them, even though you didn't feel like it.
Right. And I think we know I would go to war for my children and my family. So I would fight as hard as I could for them. So
Yeah.
you're right. There were plenty of days I wasn't fighting for myself and only because I had children that I wanted to be strong for.
Yeah.
Children at that time I just wanted to make it. I wasn't hoping to be strong or resilient or happy. I just wanted to just make it some days.
And you
But I
did.
feel like I'm thriving now. I used to joke that some days I was surviving but not thriving, but I feel like now I'm thriving. Like now I'm getting it. I'm getting it. This is so close to having it. Every day is so close to having it. It's closer than I've ever had it before, and God, it's worth it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You remind me of this quote by Viktor Frankl. So I want to say this. I'm going to say a couple things, and get out of here. Right, we're right up on an hour. But Viktor Frankl. I don't know if you're familiar with Viktor Frankl. You know who I'm talking about?
Mm-mm,
Viktor
mm-mm.
Frankl was a so he was an Auschwitz survivor. He spent 5 years in Auschwitz, and then he was liberated, of course, at the end of World War II. And then he wrote this book called what's it called? Man's Search for Meaning. I feel like I screwed that up. I feel bad about that. Um, but he has this quote. He has this quote. He has so many quotes, right? But the one I love that I think applies to you is that which is to give light must endure burning.
I love that.
You've experienced the burning, and now you are shining your lights.
Yes.
And you can't even measure, you can't even tell, quantify, determine how many people are they're experiencing the warmth of your light. They're experiencing your shine because they need it. I appreciate you. We're going to close out. Do you have any last words before we say goodbye?
I don't. Thank you for having me.
I'm so grateful for you. I'm so glad we're able to do this. And I will be talking to you again soon. And for everyone watching this, just, leave your comments and let Heather know. Let Heather know how her story impacted you, because I know that I am inspired. And without further ado,
Thank
we
you.
will see all of you later. Bye.